finals of the SeedStars World Competition 2020-21 in Latin America. My name is Paulina. I'm the Community and Event Manager of SeedStars World LATAM. We are about to discover who is the best startup in the region. Stay with us to watch the 3 startup pitches and to learn more about women entrepreneurship and empowerment in the region from our amazing speakers at the panel discussion. Also, we will find out who will be the startup to represent Latin America in the global stage. Get ready!
My name is Luis Santiago and I'm the CEO of Pegasi.
Arturo Vargas, CFO of Alfie.
My name is Leandro. I am CEO and co-founder at Closer.
Many thanks to our partners, Amazon Web Services, Presence Switzerland, and VOD.
Innovation takes time.
It's challenging.
Frustrating. But often, a thing of beauty. Innovation. We understand it takes ideas, dedication, vision.
Above all, it takes people, entrepreneurs who love to innovate.
Startups that love to make change. And companies who are not scared of taking risks or wonder what could be. Fostering innovation requires the right environment to flourish.
VA is one of Europe's leading innovation hubs with a vast number of growing industries. It's where Swiss quality of life, stability, diversity of skilled labor, talent, and academic research are all linked together to grow ideas
and innovate. Our ecosystem is rich with diversity, setting up endless possibilities between many different sectors. Health tech and life sciences.
Food tech and nutrition. Digital trust and cybersecurity.
Aerospace and precision engineering.
AI and machine learning.
Sport tech.
Drones and robotics.
Energy and environment technology. All converging to harness each other's high-tech strengths.
We act as a bridge between startups, corporates, investors, and entrepreneurs. We understand innovation takes connections, support, and financial incentives.
That it takes collaboration, talent, and the most advanced technologies to push ideas forward and bring them to market. That's why we promote, invest, connect, and grow innovation. VO.
Now, I want to welcome to the stage Santiago Ortiz, Partnership Manager of Latin America, to share with you some insights about the region and from the SeedStars World Competition 2020-21. Welcome, Santiago.
Hello everyone and welcome to SeedStars World LATAM 2020-2021. My name is Santiago Ortiz and I'm a partnership manager for the region of LATAM. As you may know, SeedStars and the region in general, LATAM, has been really impacted in many ways by COVID-19 during the last year. This has changed the way we do things and the way the region lives in general. But we are still active. We are still here. And we, as other many entrepreneurs, had to change and to adapt to the situation. So now we are running our SeedStars World competition online, just for you. It will remain the same in terms of the stages. You got the local stage, the regional stage, and the global stage. As you may know, we did a lot of sourcing and screening for entrepreneurs around the region and around the world. We targeted and went to 94 ecosystems around the world and did over 1,600 startups trainings around this SeedStars World cycle. Our methodology of sourcing is so effective because we know the ecosystems where we're going. We have local partners and local ambassadors that make us more or have a success rate bigger in terms of the reach that we can have within the region with the local knowledge. As well, you know that the regional stage, it had 94 local winners on which we are deciding on the finalist right now. 94 startups training on the investment readiness program, which is a really good program invented and tailored by SeedStars in terms of reaching and knowing the areas of opportunity that a startup can have in terms of getting ready for investment and just get all the units that they need to show to an investor. Then the global stage, 40 startups educated at the Growth Bootcamp, one winner, and an investment of up to $500,000 from our direct investment fund. So let's see a little bit more about the numbers in general. So we had in total 4,667 applications globally, of which we reached 94 ecosystems globally. In general, in LATAM, we had 929 applications on 15 different ecosystems in LATAM, different countries. What about entrepreneurs? Let me give you some facts and some data that we gathered last year about entrepreneurs within the region. So you know that, as I mentioned, COVID was a difficult situation for many people regarding just not only in the region, but in the world. After asking entrepreneurs about the opportunities that were generated by them on the last year, 33% of them actually said that there were some opportunities and there were increase of opportunities within their sector or their industry. There are some rough times that bring bigger opportunities, so that's what we're looking for, and the resilient people, just to benefit out of these opportunities that are coming out. And then in terms of the industries that were the biggest one in terms of growing, or they had the biggest impact, we can see, of course, health tech, ed tech, and fintech. This can be related to the automatization that had to be done within these sectors due to the lockdown and many other reasons around the world. Then the trending industries in LATAM. We know that financial services, it's always a big trend in LATAM in general, but we saw other industries growing. We saw the health industry, the education industry, and the tech industry in general. Financial services wasn't as big as last year, as in 2019 compared to 2020, but still, it's a big trend, and it's really a big industry within the region. Something really important for us is the impact that we generate in the ecosystems and around the world. So we are proud to say that we are also tackling critical SDGs at the same time with the entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs by themselves are tackling these SDGs. The top 5 will be decent work and economic growth. The second one, good health and well-being. The third one, reduce inequality. Fourth one, sustainable cities and communities. Fifth one, responsible consumption and production. Something that it's also important to say is that the business model that remains as the most popular, and the one that everything likes the most, it's the B2B and the B2B2C models. This is up to 65% of what we saw last year in terms of business model and entrepreneurs. So we like to stick, and the public in general likes to stick to lower risk business models. And then in terms of the kind of revenues, again, more than 43% of entrepreneurs rely more on recurring revenues to take the lead in terms of subscription, product subscription, freemium licensing, but just to have a recurring revenue from your product. And then based on the challenges that we saw with the startups, with entrepreneurs that they go through, we could notice that 28% of them, of the startups in our batches or in our programs, did not reach product market fit or did not know how to confirm it. This is really important. 76% of them, of the startups, meaning that went through our programs, did not know about their unit economics or were not sure how to calculate them. So based on that, we are filling the gap with online content based on their needs, based on their major pain points. So we provided content for over 435 startups through SeedStars Online Academy, tackling points such as customer, product, and competitors, market, pricing, and unit economics, fundraising, among many others. We also conducted on a regional stage live sessions with over 4 modules, 4 webinars, 4 office hours, 2 domain group sessions, mainly again about the subjects or the matters that were more asked for, such as unit economics, the acquisition funnel, which is the AARR funnel, the North Star metric and KPIs, growth levers to scale faster, among many others. As well, our mentors, you know that we rely a lot on them. We believe on peer-to-peer learning. So we did organize 166 mentor meetings around the SeedStars World Competition with an average rating of the meeting of almost 5, which is excellent. You can see it here that the top categories of the startups meeting requested 2 mentors. It's growth. You know, that's the main pain point that startups and entrepreneurs can have during the process of growing and selling more. Again, we leverage a lot our network. We believe on having better results by it. We have, just in LATAM, we have 129 mentors, and just in our global network, we have over 1,000 mentors. You can see that Latin America, it's on second place, just behind Asia in terms of the mentors that we have. In the hope to enable startups to raise the investment, we did created 568 reach outs to investors in terms of meeting and connecting startups with investors. It is too early to know if the investment placement will be a success or not, because our batch will be having these results after 6 months of finishing the SeedStars World Competition. Now let's get back to what's the most important for us, the finals. Thank you.
Thank you for such a great overview, Santi. Now it's time to move to the main part of today's event, the regional finals of SeedStars World LATAM. Let me introduce you to our jury members. Luis Carlos Sanchez, Innovation Specialist. Caroline Breeden, PhD researcher at University of Cambridge and Mentorship Implementation Officer at Shaping Horizons. Matias Acosta, Head of Exploration at UNDP. And Romulo Navarrete, Partnerships for the SDGs at SeedStars.
Closer. At Closer, we help experts in the wellness industry, such as yoga instructor, mindfulness professors, and many others, to create their own follow-up community monetized through subscriptions. Since we applied to SeedStars, we have managed to triple up our paid user base, and now we are working with 86 experts and 1,300 paid subscribers, mainly from Argentina, Mexico, and Spain. Today, there are more than 8 million wellness experts in America, and all of them have two things in common. First, they have social networks to interact with their community, but they worry about having no control over their business, the lack of privacy, their follow-up to their community, but they still do this in a very homemade way, like with WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, and without earning money. For that, with Closer, they can launch their paid community, generate a sustainable income, and build a digital business easily and risk-free. How it works, it's really simple. They build their membership through a self-service onboarding. They start sharing their Closer page through their social media, and they start acquiring subscribers, delivering value, and get paid every month without worrying about anything. Our business model is really, really simple. Creating a Closer is free of charge, but once experts start generating money, we take 20% of each subscription. With zero initial investment raised for the last 12 months, we have been able to grow our revenue more than 30%. $19,000. Also, we have managed to graduate from the Founder Institute and being selected as part of the select portfolio with companies like Udemy. And this is a designated recognition of the 2% among more than 6,000 startups. For the next 12 months, we project to grow a lot. We are going to have 800 experts and 17,000 subscribers. And we are very confident to achieve this because we have an amazing team. We together gather more than 7 years of experience working with content creators, more than 8 years in the IT industry, and more than 10 years as entrepreneurs. So let's join forces to do this amazing task. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leandro, for your presentation and for pitching with us. Very, very interesting. When I saw your growth numbers or your model, actually the amount of subscribers particularly, you clearly had a peak, let's say in March, which I guess obviously is correlated with the pandemic and the fact that a lot of us has to stay at home and you are providing a virtual service. How do you think actually with the slowly going back to normal situation would affect your growth rates and whether you have considered that?
Okay, actually, I have to correct you in a thing. We start, when you see the chasm there, when we do it in February, actually, it was because of pivot on our segment of clients. We start doing this with celebrities and other stuff. And through customer development work, we find out that our first customers and the most successful ones will be the wellness experts in America. And why we think that this won't affect when they start like the new reality, because we know that a lot of them tell us like that they are really enjoying the digital aspect.
So, hi, my name is Luis Santiago, and I'm the CEO of Pegasi, a startup dedicated to the smart management of healthcare information for patients such as Pablo, who spends 13 hours idly waiting in the hospital because someone lost his serious order. Gabriel and his son, who were waiting for 14 hours for Pablo's bed. And Maria, who spends 16 days in the hospital due to an allergic reaction to a medication given to her by a physician that didn't have access to her medical record. If in Latin America we had quick and secure access to medical information, none of these events would have happened. But we don't. Over 70% of the region's medical information remains unstructured, still on paper. And that is why we in Pegasi created a 4-step method to structure, process, aggregate, and analyze all of the region's medical information. The first 2 steps we tackled through PegasiMed, our healthcare information system. PegasiMed's value proposition is unique because we are the only one in the region that functions online and offline, is accessible on any smart device, offers an integrated teleconsultation model, and offers global standards for security and interoperability. The business model is a B2B, B2G, B2B2C, where the size of the license depends on the amount of physicians enrolled. in a market that has over 1.2 million physicians. We expect to have 25,000 of them in our platform during the next 3 years. But the business and impact opportunities in the BI side are even bigger. According to McKinsey, up to 17% of what we spend in healthcare can be saved by the usage of big data and artificial intelligence in a market that's called healthcare data analytics that's worth over $50 billion. Latin America only plays a very small part in that market. So, to sum up what we do in Pegasi, we structure and process patient information to optimize processes, reduce wait times, and prevent adverse events. Then the information is aggregated, anonymized, and analyzed as big data in order to research new medications, new wearables, new prosthetics, and the part we're most excited about, real-time public health vigilance. The team behind Pegasi is the perfect match between technical and commercial personnel, spearheaded by our CISOs who have more than 25 years of experience in the healthcare IT market. And traction shows we have been doing things correctly. We closed 2019 with over $55,000 in revenue, and in 2020 we closed the year with over $130,000 in revenue with these amazing customers. Pegasi is an impact-first startup where we are creating a more efficient data-driven healthcare systems that diminishes patient costs and reduces the usage of paper and electricity. And the investment opportunity that brings us here, we are looking for $1 million in seed funding in order to expand our geographic reach to 8 countries and generate over $8 million in revenue. In Pegasi, we want to be the pioneers in the smart management of healthcare information for the developing world. Join us on this grand project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. That was really great. Great to hear from you. You mentioned about the security and privacy and anonymity. Could you just expand a little on that and on how you'll make sure that you keep everything private and people's information secure?
Perfect. Thank you very much for that question. The first thing is we are 100% HIPAA compliant, which is an international standard, an US standard for the management of healthcare information. And taking the steps are given in HIPAA, we encrypt patient header information. The patient's name, address, how to contact the patient are encrypted, and the only 2 people that are allowed to unencrypt it are the patient and the physician that created the record. So in that sense, we prevent this type of information from being exploited, even by us. We don't know the patient's identity, and the only people who know it are the ones that hold the key to the encrypted record.
My name is Roberto Vargas, CFO and co-founder of Alfie. There is a huge problem in Latin America and the Caribbean. 70% of people is under the line of financial illiteracy. And this is very important because all the efforts of the governments and the private sector are focused on financial education strictly. So we validated that we need to create a new way to build a market. And we mix different techniques as gamification, behavioral economics, and serious games. So the opportunity with Alfie is to create user profiles according to the preferences of users. We propose a learning by doing process where the users each day learn about finance. And finally, we get data to create business intelligence for private partners. Our proposal to users is that Alfie is always free for all, always. But the private sector is going to pay us some fees, different type of fees and commissions in different type of markets. We create different funnels for different ages. For example, investments, savings, microfinance, and others. Last year, we finished 2020 with 400,000 users, and 9% of them monetized. Our differentiation factor, our formal alliances with governments. We have an outstanding example in the jungle of Peru with former local coke farmers, thanks to the cooperation of the American government. We deliver financial services in the jungle of Peru. Last year, we were included in the Inclusive FinTech batch. And this is our team. Thanks to this team with multidisciplinary backgrounds, we got different recognitions at new different type of markets. Around 27% of our team are women. And this is our projection for the next year. This year, we hope to have a total revenue of $1 million. And we hope also to launch our first own product. Alfie is an attempt to deliver the financial education in a different way to all the territories in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Can you guide us through the challenges that you had in the Peruvian jungle? Because if I might say, I think a lot of people in the jungle do not have internet connection and also don't have cell phones. And is this something that you're looking at in other countries as well regarding your target?
Well, the case of Peru is very tricky because we were participating in a huge program sponsored by the American government. It's called the Rural FinTech Challenge. This is a real challenge because you mentioned some of the main characteristics of the rural areas. But it's very important for us to be in contact with this type of realities because this is the ACID test for us, you know, low connectivity, low adaptability to new technologies. No one of us, of the team, on the ground over there because of the pandemic in Peru. So we developed different strategies. The first was to invite some telecenters promoted by the Peruvian government. And from them, we organized to different articulators on the ground. For example, local economic development professionals, our intervention in the area with different type of partners, NGOs, people around the clusters of the coffee cluster, for example, and also with a different type of social-based grassroots in the areas.
Many thanks to all the startups and congratulations on making it all up to this stage of the competition. We will announce who is the best startup of Latin America that will go to the grand finale in about 20 minutes. Now let's start our panel discussion. Please welcome our dearest speakers to discuss women empowerment and entrepreneurship in the region. Women empowerment and entrepreneurship in Latin America. Emily Burley, Senior Economist at the Palladium Group. Karina Azar, Executive Productive and Financial Development Division at CAF. Manuel Contreras, Senior Social Development Specialist at the World Bank. And as moderator, we will have Maria Camila Albornoz, Programs Marketing Manager at LATAM in SeedStars.
We will start with you, Emily, if you want to introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit of your background on the topic that you work currently. So hello, Emily, and welcome.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. I'm very honored to be with you. I presume we're going to be in English. I can speak Spanish too, if you want. It's whatever is most useful for your audience. So I am a development economist. I've spent most of my career working at the big IFIs, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank. Don't hold it against me. And in that capacity, I have focused on a number of key economic sectors. That's the fun thing about being an economist, is that you can, use your skills and your tools and work in infrastructure and agriculture and finance and all these different areas. Ironically, I grew up on a farm. We were talking the other day with my team about what our first jobs were, and my first job was non-paid milking of cows. And so I was like, this is fun, but it really is too much like hard work. I need to get a good education. And then I ended up, for a lot of my career, working with farmers, ironically. So, you know, you can't get away from your roots. But I have been working most recently at Palladium, which is sort of like the IFIs, but more private sector driven. And the reason I came to Palladium is I wanted to do things slightly differently.
No, it's totally fun, and I really find it interesting. And I think it's super important for Manuel and Karina also to know better your profile and also what you are doing currently, because maybe the panel will go through it and we can ask you, and yeah, it helps us also to making a fluid conversation. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to know that you are tackling these problems, because also I think even in Colombia we need it. So I hope one day all these solutions will come to us too. So yeah, so let's go next, maybe with Manuel. Manuel, welcome.
Thank you, Camila, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. And I also feel very honored, and it's great space to promote the agenda of gender equality. And I'm grateful for that in the individual level and also institutional level. So yeah, my name is Manuel Contreras Urbina. I'm social development specialist, senior social development specialist, specifically on gender-based violence at the World Bank for the Latin American Caribbean region. I joined the bank a year ago, and my background is a mix of being working in the academic research. I was a researcher in my previous life. I was also, I work also in 2 UN agencies, in UNFPA and UN Women. And I work for a think tank also, so an NGO. So it's been a mix, and that's what happens when you get older, then you have these opportunities to be in different places. I haven't worked in the private sector, actually. That's one of the, that is missing probably in the future. But yeah, now I'm at the World Bank dealing with some of the bureaucracy that Emily mentioned before. But yeah, I'm happy, and I've been in that. And it is interesting because my entire career has been in gender and gender equality. So this is probably yeah, I agree that, I mean, at a certain extent is not rocket science, right? But and everybody can become a gender specialist, but actually that has been my career. But originally my first degree is in mathematics, actually. So yeah, it shows that yeah, you can become a gender specialist from any field.
So yeah, welcome, and let's hear about you.
Thank you, Maria Camila, Paulina, for the invitation. And it's a pleasure to meet Manuel and Emily. I think it's the first time that we are sharing institutionally a space to talk about this. So I find that very exciting. And I'm from Colombia indeed. And I am currently working at CAF, which is a development bank, like the World Bank or like the Inter-American Development Bank. And I started my career working with foreign direct investment in an NGO in Colombia. And from there, I moved to working with CAF in the vice presidency of the private sector. And I am currently working with gender mainstreaming in financial operations. So a little bit what Emily said is that, of course, we're seeing more interest in financial institutions, microfinance institutions, as to how to mainstream gender in their loans or in the design of their products. And what we do is that we try to make sure that every loan that we give to a financial institution has a gender lens. that is not gender neutral, because we know the unconscious biases and the social norms can be detrimental to women, specifically in a region where the patriarchy that Manuel was saying is unfortunately a handicap for women to climb the ladder, and especially when it comes to financial services. So right now we're working with both loans that we give to development banks, commercial banks, microfinance institutions, and we are starting to work with investment funds. At CAF, we work with investment funds, but we have not still mainstreamed gender in those clients. We also work with the private sector. Later on, I'm going to give some examples of different projects and initiatives that we are working in Latin America,
through which we imagine a better world. So while we're all sitting here and looking at all the awful things that the pandemic has held for women, especially women in Latin America, I think it's also a moment where, because we've sort of paused as a global economy somewhat and paused our usual, day-to-day business, maybe this is an opportunity moment to do this reconceptualizing of roles that you're talking about. Sorry to get all lofty and philosophical, but if I don't go there, then I just get depressed. If I just look at the WF stats.
Of course, we have seen some changes, improvement between 2012, 2018. The number of women that have access to at least one financial product has increased, and the gender gaps have been narrowing. But what we also see at CAF, we implement financial capabilities service, and we just implemented last year, we just implemented 4 service in Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. And something that we see overall is that women have more difficulties than men to make their income actually cover the basic expenses at a monthly basis. And we also see that women overall depend on another person to make their financial decisions. And men, 48% of men depend on another person to make their financial decisions, but 33% of women really depend on another person. So that really makes you see what this difference is. And something that's very important here, just to wrap up this idea, is that with COVID, we also saw an increase in gender-based violence, and maybe Manuel can go further in that topic. But that also translates into economic violence. And an interesting thing that we saw is that that is basically blocking women from accessing their accounts or accessing financial assets. And something that interesting that we saw was that some banks were implementing programs to identify when a woman was a target of economic violence. So, for example, they had strategies with call centers that when a woman would call and ask something about her bank account, the operator would have a specific list of questions, just trying to see if maybe that woman was a target of domestic violence, economic violence, so that maybe the bank could help them in that sense. So, like I said, but I think the field is still for us to continue to implement a different strategy in this front.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to jump in and be the bridge between what you're saying, Karina, and then perhaps to Manuel, because I was also looking at the World Economic Forum data this morning just to refresh my memory, and of course the UN Gender Index. And yeah, the good news is Latin America is pretty good on political inclusion and voice. However, but for us to get to equal the current trends is going to take 100 years. So I'm much more, I think I'm just getting older and more curmudgeonly. And I've seen, the peaks and troughs of things going up and then down. And I feel that COVID in particular has sort of exposed a lot of harsh realities that perhaps were covered up before. And we've seen, you know, not just in Latin America, women have shared the burden of job losses during COVID. We have all of this unpaid domestic work. Domestic violence has increased exponentially. You know, it's the pandemic within the pandemic, and Manuel can speak to that. And so I guess for me, in a way, what I'm trying to do in my little world is make the connection between financial agency, especially within a household, and ensuring that women have, as you say, that crucial access even to one financial product if it's savings. Because that, I think, and we know that there's a correlation between having financial agency and a drop in domestic violence, especially if you own property. You know, there's a lot of studies around that. But I'm actually very worried right now. I feel that we have rolled back. We've certainly rolled back in Latin America, where, you know, existing inequality was bad already. You know, it's one of the most unequal regions on earth, bad Gini coefficient, and this pandemic has only put us back further. And so I've been thinking a lot about, well, so where do we go from here? And I've been quite excited to see the protests in Mexico, for example, where women are coming out and saying, we don't feel safe, the police aren't protecting us. And, you know, the highest level of state, there is this, you know, just ignoring women's issues. In England, we're having protests too along those lines. Suddenly women are realizing once again that they're no safer now than they were 30 years ago, and perhaps even worse off now. Same in the United States. What happened in Chile and the women's movement the last couple of years, I think is really exciting. So in a way, I feel like things have got worse, but women are becoming more vocal.
Topics that are really can be very controversial in some extent. And we can see, for example, the advance in things related to sexual and reproductive rights, especially like the laws that was just passed in Argentina and other countries are related to abortion. So that are like very huge achievements in the last years related to gender equality. So that's one of the positive. So there is a positive that there is a momentum, right? There is like a momentum that of this. What are the negatives? And I'm going to relate that with the questions about gender-based violence. I think the main issue is related that there are some areas of patriarchy that haven't been really, we haven't seen really real progress. And the two main areas are, one is the conceptualization of women and how that's associated to with care, with caring, and the domestic work and unpaid work at the household level. That hasn't changed much. We see in surveys about attitudes of gender equality, and when we ask men and women about at the end of the day, who should be the head of the household, they say the men. And when they ask who should be the main person responsible of caring of children and the household chores, they say women. So that hasn't really changed in the last, I would say, since I've been working in gender equality, it's more than 25 years. The statistics haven't changed much on that. That's one aspect. The second aspect is about the conceptualization of women as a sexual object and how there is a difference of the sexual rights of how they are conceptualized for men and how they are conceptualized for women. Clear example, if a man goes to the street in Latin America with a small short, with shorts in the street, Nobody say pay attention to that. Nobody say anything. If a woman does that, she's harassed immediately. And that hasn't changed. And that has been translated in that the levels of violence, and particularly sexual violence, that is very clear, a type of violence based on gender, hasn't changed. The prevalence of sexual violence by a partner or by a non-partner or by whoever hasn't changed. And that's very, very worrying. And COVID has made the things worse. I mean, already Emily and Karina have talked about that, but has made things worse in not just in gender-based violence, but in this conceptualization about, like, not just the conceptualization of patriarchy, but how women have been more responsible about all the tasks related to caring without like not at the same, and men haven't really got involved on that. And what we see is double work of women, like women working in the household, women working outside to earn money, and men don't share that responsibility. And gender-based violence, of course, has been increased during COVID for all the reasons that we know, and that is like much more lack of protection for women around this. But on top of all of that, in the last 5 years, what I've seen is also a resistance of conservative groups for this advancement of women's rights. And that is translated in several issues, and it gets into a very high political level, and that worries me really about this resistance, but it translates in political violence, economic violence, like also Karina mentioned, but also at household level. And we can see like this increase of femicides in the region for that reason, because there is a resistance of this agenda of gender equality.
Manuel, I once did an interview for The Economist many years ago, like 22 years ago, when I wanted to be a journalist. And the interviewer said to me, "Do you believe in the linear progress of history?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I do." I was young and naive. And now exactly what you're saying, and especially with regards to, the topic at hand today, it reminds me to not take anything for granted. Things can go backwards. We see that with Black Lives Matter. We see that with women. There is, this is not going to be easy. This is a fight. And why did we ever expect that people with power are going to go, "Oh, sure, have it"? I see it even on a micro scale in companies where I actually think that working from home to a larger extent is good for women. Women do well when the workplace is flexible. We all know this. We see it in the data. And there's this push now that we must all get back to the office. And I think, well, why? We've proven that we don't actually have to be back in the office. The head of JP Morgan recently came out and said it's an aberration that people are working from home. And I see this conception of work. You're talking about the conception of household chores, which obviously has to change. But the conception of work and what that looks like, and if it's a 9 to 5, how are you going to get your kids to school? How are you going to do all these things? It's much better for women that the conception of work also changes, and that we realize that, yeah, we can be remote sometimes, we can go into the office sometimes, but this is a very baby boomer white male, I think, approach that all the minions have to be in the office at this time and they want to see them. And then, you go home at a set time. Equally, JP Morgan has had this big scandal that its junior workers are literally working themselves to death. I know someone who had that position at JP Morgan as a junior analyst. And they said oftentimes they didn't really even need to be in the office. They just were kept there because that was the culture of suffering. And it was like, you have to put in your 100 hours a week, like we did back in the day. You know, this is really the time to start reconceptualizing both what women do in the home and men do in the home and what we do in the workplace. And one of my less grumpy moments, my favorite quote so far to describe the pandemic and maybe the catalytic moment we're in is Arundhati Roy, the wonderful Indian writer, said that the pandemic is a portal through which we imagine a better world. So while we're all sitting here and looking at all the awful things that the pandemic has held for women, especially women in Latin America, I think it's also a moment where, because we've sort of paused as a global economy somewhat and paused our usual, you know, day-to-day business, maybe this is an opportunity moment to do this reconceptualizing of roles that you're talking about. Sorry to get all lofty and philosophical, but if I don't go there, then I just get depressed. If I just look at the WF stats.
No, and actually, I really like what you said, because it goes to our next question, because now we were talking about like the main problems with women in general from 5 years to now, and also how COVID is like making this even worse or better. And here, like, we can jump to the next one that is like name three key problems female entrepreneurs in LATAM are facing right now. So now we jump to the work side or even entrepreneurship side, like all the women that are leading companies, that are creating companies. Also, COVID-19 was a great opportunity for some industries to create jobs, to create business, or even for others they are in bankrupt and they really need to adapt themselves to the new reality that everyone is like wondering if this will be a new reality and if we will continue with these behaviors, with this consumption, or we are going to change. And now that the vaccine is here, and I think this like 2021 is a very interesting year. And I have read some articles and people said, like, as you said, it's a moment like we already paused and think what we want, but also we already learned from last year, and so what's next? And I think this topic of women entrepreneurship and women empowerment is something that we should continue fighting, otherwise we will not get all of the rights that we want. So I would like to hear your opinion regarding these three key problems for females entrepreneurs, especially in the LATAM region.
I'm working on now, a Palladium is especially to help entrepreneurs. I don't believe that being an entrepreneur is magically the way to get countries out of poverty or people out of poverty. That's not how any of the rich countries manage to industrialize and move forward. But I do want women who are entrepreneurs to have the access to finance that they want. And I think like Karina and I are working in this sort of the same space. I had a meeting the other day with someone called Maria Pacheco, I'm a big fan of. I met 20 years ago at the beginning of my career. She's Guatemalan, and she has been very, very successful. She comes from the elite. She has used very much the power that she started off life with to help other women. She works with indigenous groups, indigenous women's groups, to create products that she sells in, Walmart and to the Japanese. And so she's very connected internationally. But I wanted to talk to her about her relationship with the banks in Guatemala. And she was basically saying, even me, a customer of 20 years with a big business, I go and I'm treated completely differently than a man who's, maybe even has a smaller business. It's harder for me to set up new bank accounts for my clients. It's harder for me to have personalized banking services. And so it was just a really interesting conversation that really went to the heart of, here is somebody who clearly is a great client, a reliable client, and is requiring further services and is not receiving them purely because she's a woman. There's no other reason.
I can go next. Just quickly about the three key problems that I think they face. One is the one that we have been talking, right? It's about the gender norms and the gender order that is unequal in all different aspects. That is translated in this particular case. For me, the most challenging thing of women entrepreneurs is the double work they have to face. I mean, it's very hard for a woman to be able to earn money or participate in the labor force, in the paid labor force, when she has to, is the main caregiver of the household, the children, and the main responsible of all of that. It's very hard. Second, there is a lack of social protection programs, definitely in Latin America. That includes, access to trainings, credit, direct provision of assets, etc. So that's very challenging, especially during a COVID and like a humanitarian situation like we are living now. It's very challenging.
And then maybe I can wrap up by saying that I agree with what Emily and Manuel were saying about access to finance and about social norms. But I would also like to add that there is an important thing, and that is taking into account that women entrepreneurs often need specific mentorship and support in terms of access to networks and access to markets than men. And why I'm saying this is that, for example, if we analyze why men and women start businesses, often men start businesses out of an opportunity. And it's often the case that women start businesses out of necessity. And if it was a necessity, then maybe the business was not well established in the beginning, saw a niche market, but didn't really know how to expand that niche market. And here is when access to networks and mentorship is key for women to expand those networks and therefore the business model. Because we often see women entrepreneurs as a small enterprise that maybe has that woman or maybe has the support of 2 or 3 other people. But I think it's important to start seeing this as a growing business and large companies also owned and led by women.
Yeah, and actually we are running now of time, so maybe it's super interesting. And now I'm also like with a lot of ideas, like after hearing you, all of you, and actually the example of the Philharmonic is, I think also it's great. I read it on your article and even in another book. So I think for now, this is one of the most effective solutions. Even with SeedStars, we are trying to tackle in this problem with programs. And also now we are like driving our organization into this because we know we can find a lot of, like we are doing more impact in all the emerging markets and in all regions. But to end up this amazing panel, and maybe I would like to finish with the last question, because now we don't have time. That is like call to action to their peers. How do you believe other organizations can support?
From my end, I would like to add 2 basic things. The first one is involve men. We often think of gender programs with women, of course, in the center, which is also important. That's one of the ways to do it. But we need more men champions. We need more men who are involved in gender equality and women's economic empowerment. We need more finance ministers who are able and eager to allocate funds and budget to women empowerment initiatives. And we also need the programs that I mentioned about financial literacy to really consider men and how they can play a role in these programs. And that is because financial health, but also for men and how the power relations and power dynamics work between men and women.
Yeah, I can add 2 more. One is that evidence shows that gender equality is possible. basically, that the transformation of gender patriarchal norms, that is possible. So what we need now, we have models about how to address that. What we need now, it takes time, it takes coordination, it takes capacity, but also takes the funds. And so for me, the call is the need of invest for the governments, private sector, the multilateral agencies, the financial institutions to invest in gender equality and transform and focus on transformation of gender norms. I think that's for me the main goal.
I can be super quick with my last words. It's simply don't quit. I think sometimes this work is very hard. It's frustrating. You go 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You just have to not quit. And panels like today just reignite the fire. It's so lovely to reach out to colleagues. Lots of Colombians. Colombia is very special in my heart, by the way. That's another story. But it's really, the way you don't quit is you get linked with like-minded people and just keep pushing.
And I'm very glad I was part of this panel. And also I want to thank you, all of you. It was a great pleasure to meet you. And also, Pau, many thanks for inviting me to this panel. And yeah, I hope you stay in touch. And also I hope we stay in touch too. And I hope we can continue inviting you to our events and all our programs that we are working currently a lot. And yeah, that's all. Thank you very much and have a nice afternoon, Emily, and you guys in Latin America have a nice day.
Thank you very much to Emily, Karina, Manuel, and Camila for this amazing panel discussion. Now let's hear what our jury members have to say about the startups.
Perfect timing, COVID-19.
I agree. That's why I actually also asked if there was a correlated. He answered there was no correlated with the current market circumstances, let's say, of the pandemic. But I do think perhaps one analyzes the situation even without extra push of the marketing that they did and how they targeted, which of course I'm sure it was correlated. I think it's a very, very good timing in how they are positioning. Even if they don't have that unique selling point, the momentum of the whole situation would certainly help them to grow in current circumstances. Not sure if they will continue competitive afterwards, but I think that's a great moment. This is a great moment to start what they are doing.
Well, I really like Hoser. Well, I had a question, but I think the time was very short. I wasn't short of, I mean, 20% of revenue as a fee. I think it's value. I know this because my mom is a psychology and I know she's doing some therapy, online therapy, and I'm not sure if she will let any platform charge them 20% of her activities, you know. So that was a concern I had. Unfortunately, I couldn't ask the question. Yeah, that's pretty much my comment at the moment.
I can quickly jump in here because I know that they're one of their competitors, which I asked for. So Substack, they charged around 10%. And the other one, I was just looking at it right now, Patreon, they charge 5%. So that will put them a little bit over the top. Right. But
I thought the team had excellent knowledge and expertise in the field. I was quite impressed by that, especially not just in the kind of research part of things but really in the healthcare industry. They really did have that expertise. So I thought that was really good. And also I liked the fact that in real time, the data will then go on to help research into different diseases and illnesses. So I really liked that.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree too. The team had experience in different fields. which was very important, especially in the health. I think one person had experience in the health industry. They call themselves an impact first in startup, which I think is very important. As Caroline mentioned, they do research with the revenue and stuff, and I think that's very important.
One of the things that perhaps is still very much in their advantage is that it's a very regulated sector and it's really hard to enter and to comply with everything, but they seem to have cracked down even that, because he mentioned something about a special, I think, qualification or compliance that he had already worked on for the security and the encryption of the data, and the confidence that he has from the partners. So that probably shows that he has cracked that up. So I think it's quite a solid and promising startup from my point of view.
So my perspective, if I would have to recognize from the current challenges, I mean, I do acknowledge there's societal challenges in the three areas that we saw, but actually I think this startup, from my perspective, would be the one actually that could have a larger potential societal impact. I actually happen to know a little bit more on the topic as well. That's perhaps why I'm saying this, but there is a massive problem on financial literacy, and even in highly educated and higher end, sort of middle-aged to even higher end, richer background people. This is really a massive problem. And I think therefore it's quite nice that they are talking.
Yeah, for me, I think by the logo and the pictures of the app and things, I assumed actually that it would be for a much younger audience and customer base. But then he threw in about the farmers in Peru, and that kind of it just opened up a huge market. And so that kind of confused me a little bit, to be honest, in terms of who they were actually trying to target. So I think, yeah, it looked really good. I think the gamification idea is up and coming in like the ed tech industry. But yeah, I think, as Matthias was saying, it's a little bit underdeveloped in terms of who their target is.
Okay, so with that being said, I would like to announce the winner of Latin America SeedStars World Competition. And the winner is Pegasi.
As with the regional stage, this is totally unexpected. I'm super happy to be here. I've known the guys from Alfie from a long time. We are startup Chile partners. Honestly, I thought Alfie would be the one that led the charge for Latin America. I have this responsibility. I also have seen the guys from Closer. You guys are doing amazing work. So this is a huge honor, and I take the challenge of representing Latin America in the global stage, and super happy to be chosen to do this. Thank you very much. To keep believing in Pegasi and keep believing in this project.
Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned to find out who will be the other startups to go to the grand finale. My name is Paulina, and it was a pleasure being with you today. Bye!